This is part 2, chapter 3, childhood. I left off 3rd grade. Social workers knew that something was different, and so did I. So did my mother. Back then, it wasn't like it is now. Even if you did notice something like this in your child, you weren't about to, put them on hormones, block their manhood, and send them on their way to being female. It would have been nice. And in my fantasy mind, I imagine what that might have been like. What my life might have been like. Would have went that way. But it didn't. So I'm starting now. So after the 3rd grade, 4th, 5th, things moved on. Different schools, still bullying. Nothing really changed, except my mom. She went through a patch. She was partying a lot, having a lot of fun, still hanging around with her gay girlfriends, but not in a permanent relationship. The thing with Amy didn't work out so good. And she ended up, I guess, feeling like, it was time for her to try again. The man. I always say that my mom is, I don't like to use labels, bisexual, gay, transgender, whatever. My mom was the kind of person who could love a person just because of the person that they were. And she's always been like that. So I think that's why it was easy for her to have relationships with women when she was young. She decided it was time to try again with men. So she went through a phase with that. And she met a guy. And she had my little brother, Shane. I was 11 years old. 10 or 11. I guess I was 11, yeah. When he was born, I was 11. So we're 11 years apart. It was just a fling, as far as the guy goes. It wasn't anything too serious. They did not stay together. But my mom ended up getting a phone call from a man who had actually contacted her father in Illinois to get in touch with her. And it was her childhood sweetheart. When she was a kid, her parents were separated. She lived out here in California, and her other brothers and sisters stayed in Illinois. Long story short, she met a boy when she was out there, and they had a little, young love thing. And he contacted her later, and she flew out to California to see him, and had a little affair, love affair, and they sprung things right back up again. And then she came back and she said, guess what? We're moving to California. So I was like, wow, because I was very much still attached to my Uncle Rick and my relatives on my mother's side. My grandmother, she had since passed, which was devastating for me also as a kid. I would backtrack on that, but I could do a whole topic on how upset I was. Because my mom's life was very busy, and she was coming and going and having fun. She was young. I spent a lot of time with my grandma and my Uncle Rick, and they were my second parents. And I had equal amounts of love for my own mother and my Uncle Rick and my grandma. I love them. I love them all very, very much. And I missed them when we moved to California. When we came to California, once again, it was my chance to start anew in my old way. So I said, okay, it's going to be different now. You're in California. You're not, in Illinois. People are more open-minded out here. California's going to be different. So I tried to get whatever, the most fashionable clothing was, whatever was in at the time to look like other kids, to blend in. I came out to California, and I tried to blend in, and in 6th grade, right away, it started happening again, even though I was out here. Nothing was really different, so I gave into the idea that maybe I was just gay. And there were different representations of it out here in California. So as a teenager, in junior high and that time, I was able to meet other friends who were actually gay. Maybe one. or two. So at least we had certain things in common. And so I went on through that and through high school. High school was really, really, really bad. Um, I was jumped and attempted to be jumped on several other times, but I was once jumped by a group of guys and pretty much had the shit kicked out of me pretty badly for having done nothing. Throughout high school, I did try and have girlfriends. There were some girls that liked me. One of those girls was named Kim Richards. She later turned out to be lesbian, which we came out to each other actually when we were still young. So she was one of my first gay friends. So we started going out together to clubs. It was perfect because everybody still thought that we were together, so we didn't have to be out to anybody but each other. And we were kind of a front for each other, and we were also like really good friends. She was like one of my best friends. I've tried to look her up forever on Facebook. So Kim, if you're out there and you happen to see this, look me up. Anyways, I changed my name to Mike when we moved out to California. You can do that. You can put an AKA on your registration forms, like if you have a nickname or a name they'd like to call you other than your real name. So I became Mike Milton, Michael, through the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. I went to Altaloma Junior High School and Etiwanda Junior High School, and under the names of Mike Milton is what I'm listed as in the yearbook. I was pretty active in the drama department. I was a thespian. I got my letter and everything. I did not make it all the way through high school because of the constant harassing and fights and attacks. I was at that age because I was held back in the 3rd grade due to all the trauma that I was older. I was just turning 18 that September as school was starting. So I was 18. My mom came knocking on my door. She said, "It's time for you to go to school. It's first day of school." I said, "No, I'm not going." She said, "What do you mean you're not going?" I said, "I'm not going. I'm 18 now, and you cannot make me go. I'm not going." And it was totally liberating to know that I did not have to go to school. I was 18 years old. So I started going to clubs. And I started meeting even more gay friends. This is when I met my first boyfriend. His name was Francisco. I met him at a club called Studio One in West Hollywood. I used to go there with a friend named Luis Diaz. So Luis, if you're out there and you see this, look me up. Also, because I haven't seen him in forever. Anyways, when I was a little young, teenager, or 18, 19, 20, going to clubs, I was just learning to accept myself for who I was, because I was amongst gay people. I didn't have to hide my femininity. I was able to start wearing makeup and wearing clothes that showed my body. It was okay for me to behave as feminine as I wanted to. I was young and I was gay, and it was quite common for us to all run around acting like big sissies. So it was a perfect environment for me to experiment with my female side. It was during this time that I met Francisco. He was much older than me. Truth is, I was just about to be 18 when I met him. I was actually 17. He was 27 at the time. It's like a good amount of, years apart. I was immediately taken by him. We were in a club, and from far, all I saw was a very sexy Latin man. And unlike most of the other men in the club, he was a man. He was not your typical gay man. There was not a single feminine bone in his body. Nothing flamboyant, nothing noticeably at all gay about him. Except that for some reason he was drawn to me. Well, we ended up kissing that night. As a matter of fact, that's the first thing he did when I met him, was he grabbed me, pulled me to him, and kissed me on the mouth in such a way that I had never been kissed before. Ever. I had kissed girls, and I had even kissed some boys, some gay guys. The way that this guy kissed me was different, and it made me feel perfect inside. And I later recognized that's because it made me feel like a girl. And that is how he made me feel, because he was such a man. And we dated for 17, 18 19, 20. We broke up right before my 21st birthday. So that's almost 5 years. And when you're 17, 18, 19, 20, those years are like an eternity. You know, you're 18, but you're not 21. You're young, but you're not grown, you know. And your heart and your eyes and your whole being feels everything for the first time when you're this age. And you're free. And you're in love. So, he was my world at that time. He lived far from me, but he spent his days off almost religiously at my house, where I lived with my parents, my mother and my stepfather, Al. She was still with at the time. We had an affair that molded my whole frame of mind towards men. We stayed together passionately for all of that time until one day, all of a sudden, he called me and said, I can't come, I'm not coming. And I said, why? And he said, because we can't be together anymore. He says, it's not you, it's me. That's what he said. It was not me, it was him. And I said, well, what is it? You know, what's the matter with you? What's wrong? You know, he couldn't tell me. But not to worry. He says, it's not you. That was my consolation. So that was it. After all those years, he just let me go like that. I called him begging and crying on the telephone, everything I could think of to try and get him to come back. I turned 21 shortly after this happened, and he did promise to make it to the party, where he did show up. By the time he got there, I was so drunk and sad and wondering if he'd actually even come, because my birthday was like, it meant nothing to me because I was so depressed at the time still over our breakup, that by the time he got there, I was already drunk and almost passed out. He made his way into the room and found me there, and he says, what are you doing in here crying? Why are you all by yourself? I said, because I miss you and I want you here with me, and I can't believe that you don't want me anymore. You know, I couldn't believe that. Because he wanted me so passionately when he was with me, I found it hard to believe. I found it inconceivable even to understand why he didn't want me anymore. It made me hate myself. So, he kissed me and touched me and told me that I was still beautiful, and it wasn't that. And he continued to go ahead and just basically take me, have me. That one last time where we laid together, me mostly crying and him holding me until I fell asleep, for me to wake up once again and find him gone. And after that, that was the end of the story with him, basically. And it was the end of me having any feelings with gay men or men in general. I was done. I didn't understand why, just because I happen to be this thing, this gay or gender weirdness, this not like other guys. I can't even be with gay guys because if they're too feminine, it doesn't turn me on. I need a real man. So I decided to try being female. I had always seen other girls do it around Hollywood and clubs, and I decided that it was time for me to give it a run and see what that might be like for me. So, I'm going to end part 2 of chapter 3 right here, and we're going to pick it up, we're going to pick up this story in chapter 4. So, thanks for tuning in.